Mike, smartest players you've ever coached?
Well, Steve Nash, right up there. Boris Diaw. He's an unbelievable. He gave me a lot of sayings, and he's different. Yeah, he's good.
You got ball. Yep. There you go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The one guy that probably stood out, I think, Shane Battier in Houston. He would study everything, and he stood out. Tracy McGrady was really, really sharp, and great feel for the game and understanding Rajon Rondo, the way he would see a game and understand what he was looking for. You know, I thought Kevin Garnett, very high IQ, Paul Pierce, you know, those guys, Luol Deng, they all had the ability, too, to think on their feet and see things in a game, like, very quickly and could take advantage of things. And like Mike, I think I'm leaving a lot of guys out.
Yeah,
so.
you know, there's a lot of smart guys.
That was a pretty good list right there.
Yeah,
That's a pretty long list.
I was thinking the same thing.
A lot of smart players. Yeah. Smartest player you ever coached or coached against?
Well, I think Rick may have answered this question last year. It was Jason Kidd. You know, he was. Rick used the term savant. He was a basketball savant. And also, I had Boris Diaw as a rookie, and he was, as a rookie, you could tell he was. And he only got smarter as time went along. Yeah.
Well, Garnett, I think Rondo is extremely smart as well. Paul probably has more basketball history knowledge than any player I've ever been around. I mean, he knows the history in the league. Chris Paul is another one. We were talking last year. Armand Hill, who's one of my assistants, about a game that we played in Boston against Miami. We're talking about a play, and Chris Paul remembers the play, and he's talking about the play. So those are the type of guys, and Blake is another one. Blake doesn't get his due because he's an athlete. You know, I don't think he gets his due with his passing and his vision. So, but the same list with Tibbs, the Garnett, Kevin, and Paul, and but Rondo, you know, for as quirky as he is, he's a brilliantly smart basketball player.
I have to go also with Jay. Matter of fact, we had a scrimmage against them the other day, and I brought one of our players over to talk to Jason for that. Jason Kidd is probably one of the smartest players. I have a player now who doesn't get the credit that they're being smart as Kyle Lowry. He knows the history of the game. He respects the history of the game. You know, knows the game, and has become a coach on the floor. Kevin Garnett, had him in Minnesota. He's a computer on the floor. He calls out the other team's plays. He'll relay it back to the bench, and if you don't know it as a coach, he'll let you know about it. You know, he
will let you know about it.
Yes,
he will.
So, and probably the player, and I'm forgetting it, and Gary Payton was one of the smart player, different type of smart, but a very good athlete and could think on his feet. And the player to coach against, and one most difficult and going through him in the playoffs, was LeBron James. This guy was looking in your mouth like right there and just calling it, was telling the players exactly what was going to happen on the play that you called.
But that changed, and you know this. Like we beat him a couple times when he was in Cleveland. He was not that way. I've never seen a change in a player. I knew we were in trouble in Miami. When we were coaching, when he was in Cleveland, he was just playing basketball. Right. We get to Miami, and he's in Miami now, and he's calling our plays out. He's staring over at our bench. He's reading stuff, and I remember saying, "Oh, this is not good."
You know, there are a lot, and Dwayne brings it up. There's when you're drawing a play in a timeout, and Garnett was one of them. Like you had to figure out. Okay, how is Garnett going to screw this play up?
Yes.
Yeah, and there are guys out there, Rasheed Wallace or Rondo or LeBron. There's Marc Gasol. I mean, there are so many. You know, as an opposing coach, that one guy can screw things up for you.
Who's the player, past or present, that you haven't coached, you'd most like the chance to coach?
have to say Michael Jordan. I mean, he's one guy that you would say that.
It's a pretty good answer.
That's one guy that.
Isn't that the answer to every question?
To a lot of them, yeah.
And Bill Russell.
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell's the other one. I mean, just to have a guy like that who's a competitor. I'm saying in time, I think everybody's going to look at KG like a Bill Russell. Probably not the number of rings, but that type of athlete, that type of competitor. And I would just love to have the opportunity to go say sick him.
Yeah, there's certain players that change the culture of your team.
Yes.
You know, Kevin Garnett
sure.
does that, Russell does that, Jordan clearly does. I think Magic is a culture changer. You know, when Magic came to the Lakers, I mean, they were dead. And, you know, I remember the first game they beat San Diego, the game-winning shot, and Magic jumps in Jabbar's hands, and he's looking at him like he's nuts. But they changed the culture. So those are the guys. I would have loved to coach Magic Johnson. That would have been a lot of fun.
Ditto.
Yeah.
I mean, those
Bird and Isaiah. Too.
Bird, Isaiah. I think what Doc said is a guy who can change the culture of your team, winning, and this is how we do things. And there have been so many of those players throughout the game. I mean, it's when you start making these lists.
You're going to leave somebody off, or it goes forever.
Who's the most challenging player you ever coached?
I would say Gary Payton.
That's where I was going.
Gary Payton. I love him to death. He's a competitor. But as Frank Furtado, our trainer in Seattle, used to say, everybody has their day in the barrel with Gary. It may be Frank's day, maybe Terry's day, maybe George's day, maybe somebody's going to have a bad day with Gary that day. But you know that night that he's going to come out and give it to you on the court. And one of the best competitors I've ever coached.
Mike?
That's way hot. Probably Kobe. You know, he was, but he would do the same thing. He has so many great things that it's unbelievable. It's a privilege to coach him, if you can call that coaching. He's got a mind of his own.
You don't have him. Dribble weave with me. I'm coming off. You go get Nick down here. Come out.
Okay.
You don't got nothing chopping in the post.
Look what we got.
He's going to do what he wants to do, but I saw some things that a human can't do. And just the way he battles pain, the way he prepares himself. Mentally, he's one of the toughest guys I've ever been around.
I go with Gary, too. I mean, he was, for 6 years, he was such a competitor and brought it every night. But he was fiery and temperamental and didn't like to practice all the time. And, you know, he and George had their moments. But I'll tell you what, the guy was a winning competitor, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
Well, Rondo would be mine, but... You know, I think when people say the most challenging, I think they take that into a negative light.
Right,
you know,
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but Rondo was challenging because of his brain. You know, he had his mind of his own at times, and you had to get him to think your mind at times, and so he was challenging. You know, it's amazing how close we are now because of that. So, you know, yeah, I would say him for sure.
Tibbs?
Probably Rajon for all those reasons, but. And that season, 08, the challenge was to get everyone onto the same page as quickly as possible because we had so many new guys. And Rajon was the point guard. And he was a young guy, and it was a good thing he had that stubbornness to him because he kept us organized because of that. And then you had to figure out, you know, how to effectively communicate with him. And then I thought each year he grew. But it was a challenge, but he did great things for us.
Yeah, I remember telling him before the year, you're going to be the no guy, you know, because you got a lot of guys that are going to want the ball, and you're going to have to be the guy that says no. And then I remember we had one blow up, and I said, I didn't mean no to me. I meant no to him. Now you're saying no to me. That doesn't work as much.